Assalamu alaikum, good afternoon listeners. It's me Sulaiman Ben Sware coming back on Facebook Live. I want to make this program brief. It's just to talk to about the case, the GAMPETROLEUM case, the trials, and the no submission case presented by the defense. You just bear me a minute, let me share this video, and the program will start. Yeah, thank you very much. Today is the 1st of July 2022. The time just gone about 15 minutes past 3 in the afternoon in Birmingham, England. I'm back today. I've been busy last few days, and I said let me come and do a brief on this GAMPETROLEUM case. And again, let me just give a context for people that might not have been following this specific case. And probably again, even for people that have been following, just to keep them in speed with the developments. The background of the case is in late last year, almost November, when we had a fuel crisis in the country. There was a fuel shortage, and there were accusation and counter-accusation about what causes the shortage, and subsequently a cartel was unveiled, and cartel entailing different entities, different part of the cartel fighting each other to expose limited to their advantage what have transpired. But one thing that did not happen is to totally give us a picture or exactly what have happened, and to stop it happening again, or to make sure justice has been served. And in that context, what transpired is GAMPETROLEUM, which is technically owned by the people, which I mean is Social Security depends on us, own majority shares. You have Gambia Ports Authority and other entities that are state-owned enterprise, until recently when a foreign company called Star Oil, which is associated to the president and the wife of the president, bought shares which the president have facilitated by directives to buy shares in the company. And GAMPETROLEUM business is to storage. They are storage. They are responsible for keeping safe the content fuel supplied in the Gambia, and to ensure that it's distributed to networks for the system to work, and obviously to make sure the right people that owns the fuel get their fuel, and to ensure that the facilities are safe for public sake. And again, then we have what we call the oil marketing companies, which do sell petrol to companies or to the public, which as retail. And there are so many of them, and their working relationship is with GAMPETROLEUM that store the fuel and that distribute fuel to them. And some of these oil marketing companies do import themselves, but main bulk of the import of fuel is by 3 major companies: PSTV, Trafalgar, and others. These are the companies that brings in fuel mainly to the country, but there are some other small operators in it. I mean, this is the background of this case, and we have another entity, stakeholders, which is the PURA, that's the regulator, that's supposed to be looking after the business, make sure it's ethical and it's working sound and fair to public and to among themselves. But again, all these things are, we later find out that have contamination with the cartel. And this thing again, this Petroleum case came out when early in the year, early last year, 2021, around May, the president visited Petroleum. And that was the time I alerted Gambians to be very careful. That's the way Barrow operates, just as Jammeh operates. Exactly. When they have interest in something, they only visit places they have interest, either political, for political support, or they want to have a chew into the lucrative markets, and they have to go and see certain things for themselves. Yahya Jammeh used to do the same thing, and Barrow does the same thing. When Yahya Jammeh make this so-called unannounced visits, it's for popularism, for people to think that he is concerned, he is dealing with issues. I mean, the rest of the people are bad, they are not doing their work, and so on. Whilst what he does is sleep all day till midday, and stay all night and just party all night. That's all he does, and the rest is to do things, I mean, that favors him and people around him. And Barrow does the same, technically the same kind of thing. He's always interested in things that that benefit him directly and the people around him. And we have seen Barrow does that few times. And I keep on telling Gambians, we have a short memory span and we don't try to connect things. When he visited the tourist development area a few years ago, and so-called been interested to see how the things are. But we later find out it's so that the distribution of some of the land confiscated from the Jammeh era and so on, and for his business interests as well. And that happened. And again, this is how I find out some of these things. It's not that someone will tell me, but I have to work it out by looking at things as they are, to be very critical of issues. That's what we should do. And this time around, again, it happened. Barrow went there. I'm not saying that people don't tell me, but I have to, in fact, at times, put people interested for them to tell me. And again, Barrow went and visited this Petroleum site. I knew there was something going on. And I listened to Barrow. You see, when you listen to Barrow, it's not that he's not going to tell you the truth. No, it's to understand his mindset and what he's about to do. I mean, it's very difficult to keep, secrets. It's very difficult to keep secrets, especially if you lead in a nation. Things tend to come out in a manner that they did not intend to put it out there. When he visited the Petroleum site and make that speech, Gambianization and all this nonsense, I knew that something going to be sprung on us, because the operations was entirely Gambian. Technically, apart from the people importing the fuel into the country, most of these companies that operate on the ground are Gambian or are registered in the Gambia. And the only time, in fact, Petroleum came to be hands of Gambian again is Barrow making that happen. When Basi was taken out, after Jammeh, Basi was taken out, and the shares that Basi owned, those were the shares that needed to be Gambianized. And both Gambia Ports Authority and Social Security were interested in the shares, because it's a lucrative industry and it's a safe place to invest in. It's a safe place to invest in. But what he did was to facilitate for a private Senegalese Mauritanian company to buy the shares, and that's where his interest was. Again, Gambians, we don't pay attention, and I make an alert on that. People don't get it. It went on. Later, after 3 months, around in June, July, there was this trip to Dubai. You see, because I alerted people on what was happening in Petroleum, make other people within the system, in fact, to realize the game being played. And this trip to Dubai entailed a lot of things. And they arranged this trip. Some people went on advance party to be there, and part of it was about this oil industry. How to manipulate this oil industry, how to take over or dominate the oil, the cartel, to dominate one part of the cartel. But again, there's another part we don't talk about. That's the oil exploration license and so on. And we have to do that another day. But that was part of it. But there are other things that were illegal inside. because that trip, there were people who were going to be part of the trip. Some definitely were trying to smuggle gold into Dubai, and some were alleged to be trying to get in cocaine to Dubai. Now, when I said that it was strange, now it's becoming very clear that there are a lot of cocaine coming out of the Gambia going to Dubai, and now we know the means that it gets there. And this was one of the reasons that this trip was going to happen. And Barrow's airline, the airline Barrow was going to use the private jet, and people, some, I'm not saying all of them, associated were interested in this. And for one thing, for the good of country, we know all they were doing was not good for country. What we did was to punch a blow in there, agitated, and did other things behind the scenes to make sure they feel unsafe, in fact, for themselves, and to not have interest again because of the lid have been taken off, and all the worms have started to come out, and the infighting and so on. And in fact, make some genuine people within government to realize what was going on. And this ensured what? They said they suspended the trip. The trip never happened again. Never happened again. Then the trip was a lie, that invitation was a lie, and everything was organized and arranged for our dodgy operations. Now, this is the background. Tells you that interest groups are all over this case. Now, what I did was, I agitated this case. I keep on agitating this case, and I still have a count on it. Since the case was broke, a technical committee was set up to investigate and everything. I had my deliberation and followed it through to the latter of what was happening. Again, I said that was wrong. The people's task to look into this are conflicted. They are part of this cartel. If the government was interested, or the people were interested to force the government, and I have to emphasize that people interested to make sure they force the government, from parliament to any other organs we have, or even coming out to demonstrate, to ask for an independent body to investigate this. The reason being is government is conflicted, Barrow is conflicted, Barrow's wife is conflicted, Musa Drame is conflicted, and Musa Drame is conflicted because of money goes in from the operations of GAMPETROLEUM. Let me put it that way. Operations of GAMPETROLEUM with the CMOs and others channeling it to Musa Drame, to NPP for political support. Then they are conflicted. They cannot be oversight to look into, investigate this issue. I raised that point, and it had been ignored, and people have not. Until we Gambians take things seriously and started to demand, things will start to happen. If not, we are just leaving it for another day, and day of reckoning is going to happen, and we'll sit down and say, what? We have seen it coming. I did that, and it went on. They did their so-called investigations, rubbish. And now we are going to see that in the court. Now, when that happened, I made recommendation, look, a company should come in, a private company, to receive a receivership to ensure that the operation continued right. But an auditing firm should be employed to investigate to the operations and everything that had happened, and where loopholes exist, so that we can plug that and avoid it happening again. And then from those fact-finding and prosecutions can ensure to make sure all people culpable can be taken to trial. But we don't expect two people to be taken to trial. In doing so, when the case, I agitated, the case happened to come to trials. For different reasons, probably. I'm not saying my agitation brought it to trial, but it might have something to do with it. I know for different reasons, many people were irritated. Many people were irritated with my agitation, because it matters to them. Because it matters to them, because they were part of this thing. Now, it came to trial, and I decided to look at the trials, and I started by doing this program by going through the newspapers, but I was not satisfied because the way it was reported, it wasn't enough for me to go by, because I don't want to prejudice the case, or I don't want to lean on any other side. It was not giving me enough. But I was lucky to have citizens that would give me the transcript, decided to do the transcript for me from the courts and supply me transcripts that I go through the transcript. And again, I did it deliberately. I refused to even read the transcript before coming on air. I took it organically so that I will be able to be more neutral, emphasize, to look into matters and deliberate with my opinion onto what have happened. I did that. That's how I deliberated. And this is about a system, and it's about justice. First, we have to realize that it's a system that was unoperational, and that system involved a lot of entities, stakeholders, and interest groups. And then it's so complicated, but again, it's very simple if you have attention to details to see where things are. Then if something is wrong, entire system is affected. For things to be wrong, two people cannot be held responsible. Those two can be held responsible among all the people and the system to be looked at. The thing too is about justice. Justice cannot be selective. Justice cannot be served if it was not thoroughly investigated to be served. And then the failure to look at the system properly, will ensure that failure of justice, and bringing two people would not ensure justice. And in order to correct things, we have to investigate, to look at the system first, so that we can correct the system so that it will not happen again, but not to leave it the same. But if we just convict two people or find two people one thing, or take two people to trials and they are found not guilty, does not mean they have not taken part. If they are found guilty, does not mean that they are the only people supposed to be guilty of this. Then justice is not served. Now, another thing is, then the system stay intact and it continue. What it means that the cartel have won again, the cartel have determined how things will proceed, and the cartel have fight amongst themselves, and they have survived and move on. Then the people interests have not been addressed, and this is bound to come and bite us again. And the cartel have insulated themselves. And when the cartel insulates themselves, what they do, they have insulated the political actors. These are the people that facilitate them to do what they do, the people that insulated to do what they do. Because you understand that the failure of the prosecution of justice, that is the failure of the or lack of the political will, or the failure of the politicians, because they are mandated, by law, by the constitution, by us, by mandate, to ensure they serve justice, and that will not be served. Because the cartel are the people that facilitate their appointment, or the cartel is facilitating the elections, or electing the president. And once they do that, they ensure that people they want in the system stay in the system, people they want to introduce to the system come into the system, and that's how the system stays and weaken, and so that they will continue to operate, creating a conducive environment for them to operate in that manner, not to create a conducive environment that would progress the nation. Now, we look at these factors, and when you look at these factors, they are very important. These are economic factors. And these economic factors are factors that affect the entire nation. And being the issue of fuel, and we have seen the fuel increase. Now, we understand it's a global issue, but again, there might be a dynamics which are of national issues that could have been dealt with, but we are not competent to do that because of the system is not clear to us, and the system is out of control. That's why it's important to have a system, and the basics of that system have to be based on transparency and accountability. And the failure of having that basic principles of transparency and accountability, we cannot hold we cannot have merit to anything in this, and so our economy does not function well. And this loss of economy again is this thing. Someone, Mustafa Dabo, the journalist, have put it right. And this is not only to Barrow, and this is not only to Jammeh, this is of African leaders. Go and look at the economic policies. All African leaders is one thing: build roads, build buildings. The highest building, build roads, and African people celebrate the building of roads and highest buildings. Even the so-called Rwanda is the same thing. And I don't want to go into Rwanda, and if I have gone to Rwanda, you see a lot of loopholes, a lot of PR around what they say or do. But go and look at all of Africa. What they celebrate is big buildings, roads and bridges. That infrastructure, they think that's all development is about. But the basic principle, if we can feed ourselves, if we can't manufacture anything for ourselves, two principles. If these two can we achieve, buildings of roads are easy and cheap. If they are not achieved, building of roads are easy. In a way, you go and take loans for the next generation to pay, and you make your kickbacks and cuts and everything, give it to a company that you have a deal with, or give it to a multinational company that ensure that you have the loans. Because of some of these loans are tied with, you have to take a company from us, a Chinese company, an Indian company, a European company, or an American company. How difficult that is? Will you call that leadership? No, this is another issue that we have to deal with, another program. But again, to show that the importance of economy and this economic loss and the factor of destabilization. Look, we are blaming the youths for this bad way, and that's a genocide. That's a genocide, and someone has to be responsible for that genocide, and the youths are not responsible for their own genocide. It's the poor leadership in Africa, especially sub-Saharan Africa. We are blaming the youths in the country become vagabond, bandits, criminals, and whatever. We have to blame the leadership and us for what is happening, for not holding government accountable to ensure that we create the conducive environment. And every other thing, we are blaming hunger on Russia and Ukraine. We are blaming everybody else, but not blaming ourselves and our leaders. Blaming ourselves for not holding the systems accountable, creating systems that are fit for purpose to ensure that we deliver what we can. We are human beings. If we can have brains to go and serve in international communities, have brains to come and serve in these countries, to be efficient, to be promoted, to be leading contingents here, I mean, as military, leading departments in police, leading in economic forums, leading medical facilities, leading everything else in the European and American companies, competing with people who were born here, raised here, and everything, or we born be married to each other, Gambians married to each other, able to bring up kids within this environment and bring that, we could have done that for ourselves. And the failure, we have to take that as well. Because of we have not done what we should do to make sure we have the right leaders and those leaders to be held accountable. And the destabilization will happen and continue to happen. That's why Africa, without progress, Africa would have, will have to suffer this destabilization and the criminality would and so on. And this again, that's where the tribalism, that's everything there is, because that's mechanism to divide us, mechanism to keep us back, so that the cartels can continue to operate, interest groups can continue to operate and put the politicians that they want to be in power, and that was causes our destabilization. Corruption is the root causes. Corruption is the root causes for the incompetence. Corruption is the root causes for the tribalism. Corruption is the root causes of everything. Tribalism does not bring the corruption. No, it's the corruption that brings it tribalism. And that tribalism is nepotism for that matter. Because it's all tribes dealing within a system. Based on uncle, nephew, cousin, whatever it is. Than tribe. We have more of our problem is of corruption than this. And the point now we have to go on is, as I said, I was going to keep it brief, but when you do these programs, it does have its way of opening up the cans of worm, and we keep on continuing on this. If you bear me a minute, let me open this thing from my phone, and we start the program. Okay, unfortunately, I've not got the transcript from the courts. What I have is the news report from Kirfatu. I have the news report from Kirfatu. That's where I'm going to read from and give my quick analysis on the defense. Again, my point here is the point of the defense. I said it, as I said, that's why I was producing this program organically. I said if I was the defense, I was going to put a no case submission, because the prosecution have failed to bring out a case. Is it deliberate? Is it incompetence of the justice system? Or is it because they're trying to insulate. A lot of other people don't come to the to justice, and then they cannot prosecute the way they should prosecute. These are all trade that can be considered. But what we have to look at, it was what is before the courts. It's completely have not proven any case against these two. I am not saying they have not committed a crime, but I'm saying for what they have been brought to the courts have not. That was my observation from going through the evidence provided by the prosecution. The prosecution came to say that they were going to provide 7 witnesses. They ended up providing about 12. But still, they have not done anything different. And I followed it through. Next minute, I have to stop because there's no anything new coming out, and I don't want to bore myself or bore my listeners because they keep on repeating the same thing that the defense have agreed on, because they have not done proven or put anything contrary to what the defense is going to put as a defense. And the crux of the case here was theft first. If theft was not established, then you cannot have the other case, charges, put merit on other charges of conspiracy, of other forms. It will not. You see, they went on fishing expedition. It's called fishing expedition. Go on to this draconian laws of the dictatorship, of economic crime, and fish it out to bring so much and say that one might stick. But they forget that the crux of this case is you have to hold these people liable for the missing stock, and if you hold them liable for the missing stock, then everything else would matter, and then you can catch them on 1 or 2 or all of them. But they failed to do that. The crux was not this thing, and for this reason, I did look at the defense submission, and brilliantly put. They have put they have laid the foundations on how to address the submissions. And I am not a lawyer, but I have followed court cases since my childhood, and I have passed on for law. And that's why I understand this thing. And people wonder, oh, how does he know that? Yes, I know that he have followed the foundations to put the case by referencing all the relevant cases and subject on the Constitution. But again, one place I feel that the defense have let their hands off, specific. There should be some specific areas. They should have point to the submission of the prosecution to show that they have failed. And one of those, let me put it here now before we go through, would be to prove that, look, when Ababakar Jaw was brought in fact, the defense, the prosecution was bringing a case within a case. That case was already dealt with, and that case was a civil case, which the civil case, their client, though both clients were not mentioned in that case. It's already a civil case in the higher courts, same high court. Then that case should not have, those, and show that evidence that, look, this is what we're dealing with here. I think it's unfair for our witness to be put through this, to defend themselves. They have nothing to defend. Allegations have not, no evidence been put to here, and similar cases like that. But I think they have done enough. They have done good. If the judge looks at it, I believe that the case will be thrown. If not, the case will be open for the defense to come in, and we see what's going to end up. Let's go through it. I took it from Kirfatu, as we said, and written by Lamin Sisi. The lawyers representing the first and second accused, person Christopher E. Many, has filed no case to answer in the GAMPETROLEUM corruption trial at the High Court of the Gambia. Lawyer Many is the lead counsel of the accused persons in the trial at the High Court of the Gambia, involving 2 staff of GAMPETROLEUM. The two staff, namely Shehu Drame, first accused, former managing director of GAMPETROLEUM, and Lamin Gassama, second accused, former operational manager of the institutions, are charged with 8 counts, 3 counts of economic crime and 5 counts in the alleged corruption scandal. The 8 counts are labeled against the 2 in their maiden court appearance at the High Court in Banjul on the 4th of April 2022, presided over by Judge Hadiroj. Their appearance in court followed their arrest regarding their alleged involvement in the alleged corruption, malpractice, and the missing of fuel produced worth $20 million at the depot. In this submission, lawyer Many said the accused persons have no case to answer and should there not be called upon to defend themselves. He said the prosecution called 12 witnesses and tendered several documents. That's how I, as I just introduced, it's just plain out there. That's what the background of the case is, and that's what this background of the submission started to be, that they have no case to answer. Again, 12 million worth of stock have been missing. But the crux of the case is here then, that have to be proven. One, to prove theft, we have to define theft. And define theft is someone unlawfully obtaining, taking someone else unlawful. He is not to have it. He doesn't have any rightful ownership to the product or item or whatever it is, and take it from them and permanent, having the intention to permanently maintain that or keep that away from them. Now, that's what theft means, that in this case. Now, they have to prove this, that these two have played a role. They might not necessarily go and pick it up themselves. They have played a role, they are the principal that played the role. But again, whoever plays a role in this process should be charged equally, or should be charged at least. And if there's a plea bargain, they brought in as witnesses, that would be considered. But to go to the procedures of law, they have to be charged. They have to be charged. Then the plea bargain will come in and explain to the court, this is the reasons, because these are minor crimes, and in order to help the prosecution, we have to charge, bring these people and plea on this, because they have helped the investigations and make sure that the people who hold the responsible be put to trial. They have to be proven to take part, and the role they played have to be explained, and how it's done that stock got missing have to be explained, and all the people that play part in that have to be explained. Even the people that received, whether they bought or they borrowed or whatever, they got the product, because that's the final nail of permanently keeping it, taking it away from the person. That permanent is a key objective to be maintained, to be observed, or to be established in order for the case to be determined as theft, and they fail. Now let's move on. Lawyer Many said it was on this basis of the witness testimony and exhibit tendered to the court that the prosecution closed its case, and that it must be noted for the records that all the witnesses without exceptions were vigorously cross-examined, and that it enabled the court to assess the reliability of the evidence in chief of the witness. You see, that's why I am in favor of taking things to the trial, to justice. The commissions are just investigations. That's why we cannot take a verdict or recommendations from the commissions as implementable laws. No, because they didn't go to rigorous cross-examination. Rigorous cross-examination is essential and is vital, essential, and have to be in order for something to be proven beyond reasonable doubt, or proven, I mean, even in a civil court, to determine the damages or rightful ownership of anything. Then again, this is our point, that commissions are just one way of whitewashing, one way of executive having powers that they don't have in order to use recommendations in the way they want it, and taking the justice out of it. And that's why I am never in favor of an inquiry of that manner to be served as justice. No, justice have to go through a cross-examination. Now, the defense have said it, right, that look, these cases, they brought their witnesses, they brought their exhibits, they've gone through rigorous cross-examination, and through that we are going to make our case of no submission, and we're going to look at that. That's why I said the defense too should have go on more specific, picking on points from the prosecution that have contradicted or that have in fact proven that, look, we have not. My client have nothing to answer here. They don't have to be put through this thing anymore. The lawyer continued, many. My lady, it is my submission that the word or phrase prima facie is not a magic word. Prima facie evidence is synonymous with sufficient evidence. This evidence, which is on the face of it, is sufficient to sustain the charges preferred against the accused person. My lady, it is evidence that which in the judgment of the attentive law is sufficient to establish the guilt of the offense they are charged with. My lady, it is tried principles of law that if there is no sufficient evidence linking the accused person to with the statutory element and ingredients of the offense they are charged, the court of trial must, as a matter of law, discharge them, and court have no business searching and sorting for evidence that is nowhere and therefore cannot be found. It's simple and easy. Evidence, it is on to the prosecution to bring. That's why in an English law, common law system, prosecution have to come first. They don't say, okay, defense, come and defend yourself. No. Prosecution have to come and make the case. And the judge there is to base the trial and her or his judgment on what is put before them. And that means not only the prosecution bringing a witness and the evidence to tender, but give the opportunity to the defense. That's why it's called a fair trial. The defense to cross-examine have the rights to cross-examine the witness and to in fact challenge the evidence being put. There's a law covering even the procedure to put in evidence before a court. And the famous Justice Jallo, our Chief Justice now, have even gone far to written a book based on law of evidence. I mean, just to support with looking at different cases that have been within the sub-region to make it easier for evidence to be put to or to be understood before the courts. In this case, this is what he's asking for. And if this is the case, that they fail to do this, then the court have no business in trying to look. But what most in law is something that should happen most accurate. Most accurate. Now it's for the judge to decide that what we have to look. To be searching for evidence that is nowhere and therefore cannot be found is not consistent with our adversarial system of justice that we have. That will be the inquisitorial systems of the justice administration. I refer the court to the case of Oga Guru Waka versus the state in 1993 Nigerian law report. The situation we have to sustain in the offense is the situation we have here today, on all offenses without exception. Again, as I said, he laid it right and then point to a case which we were reviewed and reported in Nigeria in 1993, the state against this person mentioned. And he said, as that was, this one too should, because of every charge here should be just deemed as not fit to be examined for that matter. And he continued to say, my lady, having reviewed the entire led by the prosecution and the evidence elicit under cross-examination. Very important. Elicit, I cannot but object that the entire case made out by the prosecution can best be described as borrowed Shakespeare expression, in it is a tale full of sounds and fury, but significantly nothing. As he said, for the evidence put by the prosecution and those elicited from cross-examination have proven that, or have provided me the position to come to conclusion that this is, and quoted the Shakespeare to say that this is all noise and there's nothing in it. The accused person has no case to answer and should therefore not be called upon to defend themselves. Defense lawyer Manny told the court. Lawyer Manny further told the court that in simple terms, what the accused persons are simply saying is that the prosecution have not established a case against them at all, and therefore they should not be made to face the ordeal of defending themselves. Simply put, and clearly put, that this is what they're trying to say, this is what the defense is saying, that look, we have been accused of something and we have come to trials and we have gone through all this, but nothing, and the prosecution have gone through everything and cross-examination done, and they have rested their case. Now you don't expect us to come and answer to allegations that have not substantiated. That is a matter of putting us into more, and which is not fair, and point of law is not fair. And he continued to say, I say so with all sense of seriousness. Being called to defend yourself when the facts are not sufficient is very, very traumatic, he said. Lawyer Manny referred the court to the case cited above, Ohuka. Sorry for this pronunciation. Ohuka versus the state 1988 Nigeria law report, in which the Supreme Court of Nigeria held that the submission that there is no case to answer may probably be made and upheld by a court in the following circumstances. A, again, reference to law, to court the report in Nigeria. And in this case, again, said that these are the points to be observed in order to able to determine this case. When there is no evidence to prove an essential element in the alleged offense charge. Just as I said at the earlier point, in this case, you have to look at it as theft. In order to establish theft, you have to look at these elements to make sure it's proven or provided, evidence is provided from, if not, theft have not taken place. And up to the last one of permanent keeping the things away from the person. When the evidence adopted by the prosecution has been so discredited as a result of cross-examination or is so manifestly unreliable that no reasonable tribunal would safely convict on it. Again, through cross-examination. And that's why I said the defense should have pointed at certain circumstances that have happened. In the case of cross-examination of Abubakar Jawar, what Abubakar Jawar was pointing at was a civil case. And that case was not even about, yes, it was about petroleum deals. You see, that's why when you have, if we had gone through a proper investigation on audit, then there should, something can be identified. But here they have not proven that the person here in the dock, or the two people in the dock here, have anything to do with the missing or money taken from Abubakar Jawar. In this case, they have not proven that. But Abubakar Jawar have in fact realized this, and Abubakar realized this is a civil case and went to the High Court and put in a civil suit. And when he did that, he did not include the two accused in the dock here. He decided to accuse someone that works for him, Khadija Kebe. And you see, this is through the cross-examination have proven that no, things have been proven here. It's coming becoming even ridiculous that we are entertaining this case to go further. This is what the defense is putting here and referencing what a case report court report have said in Nigeria. And these are two things that you have to look at: the evidence provided or the evidence obtained through cross-examination, whether they provided any evidence. And this is the position of the law on no case submission across all common law jurisdictions, Lawyer Manny argued. Lawyer Manny said he will refer the court to the case cited on the meaning of the essential element of an offense. He said these conditions supra disjunctive and conjunctive, and that a trial judge is competent to rule that an accused person has no case to answer if one of the two conditions stated above are satisfied. That's as he said. It's quite simple. These two cases are here. One, the evidence provided. Two, the evidence obtained through cross-examination. If in both circumstances, even I'm not sure even in one, that the case have not been proven into this, then the case should just be, a case have not been made into this, then the case should be put in, struck out of the court. That is why the conditions are disjunctive, and he said, Lawyer Manny said, in applying these principles to the principal case, he is submitting that both condition A and B exist in this case, which I agree to. He continued to say, he submitted that without any fear of contradiction, that the prosecution have not proven the essential element of the charge in count 1 to 8. Lawyer, it is also his submission that on condition B of upholding a no case submission, that the evidence adopted by the prosecution have been so discredited as a result of cross-examination of prosecution witness, or so manifestly unreliable that this honorable court, as a reasonable trial, cannot safely convict on it. As I gave example on the Ababakar case submission here, he said, Lawyer Manny said in analyzing the evidence in the case, he will only confine himself to the evidence that are relevant to two conditions in making up upholding a no case submission. My lady, the fact in this case speaks for themselves. It does not require too much analysis. In going through the evidence, I will be guiding and urging the court to be guided by the common law position as encapsulated in the English locus classics course case, the lawyer argued. Lawyer Manny quoted Lord Lenin, where there is no evidence that the crime was committed by the accused, the judge have to stop the case. Simply put there. Lawyer Manny said this dictum was echoed in the case of Cisse versus the Commission of Police, Gambia case. He said, the right of the accused person to remain silent is a constitutional right guaranteed in the 1997 constitutions of the Gambia, adding in the case the accused person have been charged with several offenses. The statement of the offense must be an offense known to all. The particular of the alleged offense stated in the charge have the same role as pleading in a civil matter. So evidence that is at variance with the particular of events goes to no issue, he said. Now he's pointing to the area of the silence. They said, look, my client are within their rights to be silent. And they don't want to go through this trauma. I'm not going to put them through this trauma to answer to a case that has not been proven. And recognize that this is no form of because of their guilt or anything else. It's based on exercising their rights to remain silent as it is in common law. And it is actually in the Constitution of the Gambia 1997. And he quoted the case, I think it's Dr. Cisse versus the Gambia police. Lawyer Manny said count 1 of the charge, which is conspiracy to commit economic crime, had looked at section 268 of the criminal code, and the offense conspiracy to commit economic crime does not exist anywhere. Look, I am not sure about this because I tried during this course of this to look at this criminal code proceedings. I didn't have time to do that. But for a lawyer to put this to a judge, that lawyer must be sure of what they say. And I will not be disappointed that the prosecution have gone and charged someone on a law that did not exist. I will not be disappointed because I don't have any regards for the Justice Department in the Gambia because of, I mean, it's absolutely, they are incompetent and corrupt. We have all seen what they're doing with the case, with all the cases they have before them anyway. And this is disgraceful if this is the case here. And I don't think Lawyer Manny, as a senior legal person, would put for a judgment something that is completely false. No. And as he said, he looked at it and actually it did not exist. And if this is true, this will have a big impact on to the joint decision. He continued. Lawyer Many said that degree is only okay. He said that the offense of criminal crime, economic crime was created by a military degree and was amended by another degree, and that was before the coming of 1997 Constitution. Okay, this is very important. This is before the coming of 1919 Constitution. You see, this law existed during the time our Constitution was suspended. Whether this law is fit for purpose would be tested with the Constitution. If it doesn't fit for purpose within the Constitution, should be out. And the Justice Department should have made sure during the time they would have reviewed all these laws and taken them out anyway. But again, this is another way of proving them incompetent. Lawyer Many said that degree is only saved by 232 transitional period of the Constitution as an existing law, but only to the extent of consistency with the Constitution. Yes, he's saying that these degrees were safe because of the article of 232 degree of the transitional provision, and the only laws that can be passed over or to continue to exist would be something that's with the supreme law, which is the Constitution. If not, should be taken out. He said the offense conspiracy to commit economic crime does not exist in the criminal code. He told the court. The word conspiracy to economic crime does not exist. He made to the court again. Lawyer Many said with regards to economic crime charge, count 6, 7, 8, the most crucial thing to be charged are the evidence of PW2, PW4, PW5, PW6, PW8, PW9, PW10, PW11, and PW12, and the exhibit tendered through them. Now, he's saying conspiracy did not exist, but economic crime did exist. Okay, this can be looked into technicalities, and the judge might rule according to the technicalities, because again, if a charge sheet is to be drawn, have to be point on law, and the law did not exist. The word conspiracy on economic crime, I am not sure. I am not a legal person. Here it's above my layman's understanding, but legal people can argue, and that's why he put it to the judge, and I think they can argue that and take it. But he's saying that, look, the economic crime case here, it's based on these people's testimony and the evidence they put through. But I would have added, look, the main crux of the case is, if it's not established, then economic crime cannot be established. Because if the person is not responsible for the missing fuel, then the person is not responsible for the damage it has done to the economy. That would have been my point of objection. If I am not responsible for stealing, I cannot be responsible for the aftermath of the stealing. What happened, the byproduct of the stealing, as you must know. But let's move on and see what they're going to do. He said the evidence demonstrated clearly that both accused persons are not directly or personally involved in the loading of uplifting of trucks at GAMPETROLEUM. This is again my point on theft. The person might not be directly, but have to indirectly. But he said they are not directly or indirectly. It's not proven to the court that they are directly or indirectly. They have not been heard or evidence put before the court that they have given orders for things to be done. And again, what the prosecution did was to bring witnesses that have been saying that, oh no, borrowing on negative equity is allowed. Borrowing of this is allowed, borrowing of this is allowed. Everything they said is allowed, make it no offense for these things to happen. Now, the point of where the theft happened, that's where they fail to look at. Because probably, and rightly so, not probably for me, I know that they are protecting people. Because if they have looked at where the theft has happened, probably these two will be guilty, but other people will be guilty. They are not protecting these two. They want to sacrifice these two, but the others involved, up to the president, would have been brought down. And if Gambia was a serious country, this case would have brought down the government. That's me. If it was a serious country, this case would have brought down the government. Because when the investigations are done right, the government would have been brought down. Let's move down. The issue of accused person intent cannot be substantiated in any way. There is no evidence before the Honorable Court that the 4 second accused persons are direct or personally involved in the uplifting or loading of trucks belonging to the OMCs. My point again, it's not proven. Directly or indirectly, they have not proven that. They fail to prove that. That's why I said the case is about theft. If the theft is not determined, then you cannot determine the rest. And the theft here is not determined, because all the things that constitute theft have not been proven here. Let's move on. The evidence established that several people, other than the 2 accused persons, are involved in the loading of the trucks. Lamin Toure is involved as the depot supervisor. Usman Ba is involved as the control room supervisor. Then you have the loading day supervisor who physically load the trucks. Then the financial department that monitor the throughput, charge, and ensure that they are paid. Then you have the reception area where the loading tickets are photocopied, the security of GAMPETROLEUM. You have customs to ensure that the duties are paid. Then you have the paramilitary station at the gate. Evidence have been laid before this court that even trucks that goes outside the country, their loading is recorded. Defense lawyers told the court. That's what I said. Now, all these people, if investigations were done, most likely they would have been charged by one playing a minor role or a major role. And those people that played a minor role could have been charged and taken to the courts to testify as a prosecution witness and a plea bargain for lesser sentence. That's the only way you prosecute this sort of cases. It's a case that runs in a system. Then the system needed to be audited by competent people who are not conflicted. Conflicted people tend to insulate many other of the people to protect themselves. This is the problem with this case. Let's move on. Evidence have been, okay. Lawyer Manny said, all the evidence that was led by the prosecution witness demonstrate all the uplifting at GAMPETROLEUM are all recorded, and it passes through many gates, and none of the prosecution witness have testified that the accused person have done anything different than what have been in practice at the GAMPETROLEUM for so many years. Nothing. Now, again, that's a clear point. Again, have you heard about customs? You see, the point that customs would have been one area. Again, you have a parallel and a vertical accountability systems in this, and customs would have served as a check and balance, because customs is independent of GAMPETROLEUM, and customs would have determined if you have taken the books from customs and to check it with the oil marketing companies and their taxes. But if you do that, customs themselves will be found wanting, because customs are colluding with oil marketing companies not to pay the right tax. And who is benefiting in this? Barrow himself, because Barrow is benefiting from the tax not paid because of he's getting kickbacks from GRA direct. We know that. We know that. But Gambia is not a serious country. We keep on touching on things and moving. He continued. He argued that fortunately almost all the exhibit evidence on the uplifting of fuel from GAMPETROLEUM for the relevant period that were tendered by the prosecution show that they were signed, endorsed, and approved by persons employed by GAMPETROLEUM other than the first and second accused witnesses. You see, again, he's putting a point that, look, people signed for all these things should be held liable, not even my my client here. They have not signed any of these documents. Lawyer Manny said that all the upliftings were tendered through witness Usman Ba, a depot supervisor, and that 99% were endorsed or approved by other officers. You see, again, he's pointing on the same thing, putting clarity on that. That's why I say need a little bit more clarity on other cases. It was said that the system was automatic, it was automated. You have the depot supervisor, you have the accounts, you have the customs, you have the security order, all involved in this process before you can make an uplift. In this process, you cannot take a liter without passing through these processes. The accused persons are innocent. If those people are innocent, then the accused persons are innocent. It is on record that only the 2 accused persons are charged. He argued. That's my case. That's my point. Vertical and horizontal. It's a system. Now, if you agree that the system was not broken up, that everybody else that played role in the system have done the right thing, then how can you hold these P2 people that have not have evidence on them that have they played a role in fact in this? This is where the case is. And again, I have advanced my point onto the case is adjourned to be continued. Onto the no case submission. And now is when they continue and finish. Now is for the judge to either accept the no case and throw it out, or if he thinks that the case merit to continue, then he'll continue. The defense is doing their case right. Sorry guys, I have to cut it here, and yeah, I think it's been covered well, and we catch up again soon. Thank you.